Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the People's Forum. Can you raise your hand if it's your first time coming here? Oh, exciting. Thank you, Kyle, for inviting all your friends. So, the People's Forum, for those of you who don't know, is a space for political organizing, for movement building. We are on the front lines of organizing, not just for Palestine or international issues, but for all the struggles that are sort of developing right here in the United States. And we see cultural organizing or cultural work as deeply tied to our political work. In fact, we said we had to have this launch here. One, because we admire Kyle as a poet who is courageously using their voice in the struggle, but also because poetry forces us to reflect about things that we often don't want to reflect about. So for tonight, this is not a ordinary event at the People's Forum. I would say this is a hugely special night for us because we're welcoming a friend and a comrade, but also someone who represents so much more to us because Kyle is from Cuba. And for us, as we speak, Cuba is going through a genocidal siege imposed by the US government. The Trump administration has not allowed fuel to enter the island for the last 6 months. This has caused so much hardship on the Cuban people. We could have disagreements about what we may think or not about the Cuban government, but one thing that it cannot be justified is the level of genocidal violence that Trump is unleashing on the Cuban people. They don't deserve it. So we welcome all of you tonight in the spirit of struggle, in the spirit of solidarity, but also encouraging you all to reflect on the poetry tonight, but more importantly, to also reflect on what it is that you're willing to do in a world that needs to be changed so urgently. With that, I want to formally welcome our poet and panelists today and read their beautiful bios. Kyle Carrero Lopez is the author of Muscle Memory, the chapbook winner of the 2020 Pank Books Contest, Party Line, forthcoming July 26th from Grey Wolf, and serves as editor for Poetry Project newsletter. Born to Cuban parents in northern New Jersey, which we're so honored to have the family here. His work centers power, social life, and Afro-Cuban histories, among other subjects. His writing has been highlighted in Best New Poets and Best of the Net, roundups in W Magazine, Current Affairs, and The Atlantic, and episodes of Poetry Unbound and The Slowdown. We're also deeply honored to have Elisa Gonzalez, who is a poet, essayist, and fiction writer. Her work appears in The New Yorker, The Paris Review, and elsewhere. Her debut poetry collection, Grand Tour, was named one of the best books of 2023 by The New Yorker and Book Riot. It received a Whiting Award and the Levis Reading Prize, and a Literature Award from the American Academy of Arts and Letters, among other honors. We're also equally honored to welcome Jasmine Sanders to the stage, who is a writer from the South Side of Chicago. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, Art Forum, Book Forum, and New York Magazine. So please come onto the stage and bless us with your words, your knowledge, your poetry, your beauty tonight.
Oh, it's like one too many mics. I'll just put this one here. All right, hi. This is so cool. My family's here. People I went to high school with are here. My girls are here. My squirrels are here. Everybody's here. Thank you for being here. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna read a bit from the book. This book deal was 2 years ago, so this is like the longest pregnancy of all time, it feels like. So I kind of can't believe that it's actually here. I'm gonna read a little bit from, there's a lyric essay in the middle section of the book called Public Policy. So I'll read from that, and then we'll Elisa, Jasmine, and I will chop it up, and then we'll sign books, and then we'll go to the afters. So, yeah, all right. Heading home, I sit by a climate-stressed, civic-minded man on the subway. He volunteers to phone bank, bemoans corporate carbon footprints, votes for each commander-in-chief, and posts proof online before raging at third-party voters. He's got $4 in his wallet, change for a green juice from the deli. When a stranger plods through the train car asking for cash, the man pulls a quick trick. He does not look, does not speak. Neither does the hip couple seated diagonally from us, nor the friend group to his direct left. The solo dress shirt and tie beside them whips out a neat frown, says, sorry, keeps it civil. It seems civic to, at minimum, face the face of one in need. To try, knowing nothing helps like meeting an ask in full, to boost a stranger's morale before their 20 next attempts. I don't always have cash nor energy to speak. These named actors, the rest in the scene, and me, a two-row choir of head shakes no and looks away, a tunnel inside a tunnel, daily failing one another. The following morning, I read about investigators uncovering over $500,000 in cash and gold bars in Senator Bob Menendez's home. His explanation is simple: because of the history of my family facing confiscation in Cuba. Although his family left pre-revolution, and although this excuse fails to move the presiding judge in his bribery case, it occurs to me that this is possibly the most Cuban American public statement I've ever heard. Communism is just a red herring, goes the line from Clue. Should I insider trade? Should I embezzle? Should I launder? Should I mortgage fraud? If ever I'm caught up in white-collar crime, I'll tell the judge Bob's exact excuse. Months later, I'm at a Christmas party. It isn't a white Christmas. The winters keep taking longer to arrive. I see my friend H's ex. This ex used to hit H when they were together. He once dragged H to the street, sat on his chest, and strangled him until he agreed not to call for help. H told some people but isn't friends with this circle. The ex avoids me because he knows I know. It's hard to know who else has heard. I know a designer who knows the ex and still works with him. The ex works with celebrities. He's skilled at styling hair, offers a low price point. He's done the hair of some friends at this party, does beautiful work with those same hands. Next weekend, I'm at another benefit party we've thrown to funnel as much money as we can to family and friends in Cuba for medicine. We stash hormones and eye drops in tuna cans in bags delivered by hand. Our trade routes sea-wide and paved fresh, smooth as the roads in a township that lead to its upper crust. Lucky to have a little more to spare. Lucky people can pay the exterminator or the cleaner and leave a room, leave a country, look away from the work. Not that we don't need. Lately, just doxycycline for me from the city's hottest party, the free clinic. Colon cancer holds my bloodline. Men of African descent get it younger and younger, they say. Might baby's first colonoscopy loom? If baby's got the right insurance. A decade post-transplant, my mother needs a new kidney so she won't need more dialysis. These transplants aren't removed, so she now has 4 of them, a party of kidneys inside her. She's got the right insurance. Call it opulence, American. You own everything you can afford. No more. Call it good, greed. Call it maverick. Call it rugged. A friend at the benefit asked my thoughts on a few very high-profile poets. One day I'll run for POTUS, the young poet declared at the height of her newfound fame. Picture it now. Will the anthem at last see a rewrite? POTUS poet, please write it as a villanelle that's also a blues poem, that's also a bop whose rhythm rocks the soldier's boots, shoulders slinging assault rifles, lined in Hamilton lines. No, not Alexander, Lin-Manuel. Kids bop, hip-hop for feel-good empire. The young poet comprehends precedence. The young poet understands the president's job. The young poet comprehends the president's job and still wants it. And how ironic, having lived among pheasants in the oat rows, soon become the hallowed hunt. How iconic of a poet to gift us more problems herself, to bend to lobbyists as the president does, but with a new poetic slant, to authorize all the more reason to write. Half a year later, I'm at a Reese Beach party with Mikey, middle of what used to be autumn, the air's odd warmth on our hands as we sip nutcrackers and dance. The sand burns from the sun's stare. We laugh about the same thing now and then. Days before, we discussed meteorologists newly dubbing our city subtropical, how dogwoods and magnolias and other human daughters have found life in the Big Apple. Hours on a gay beach stretch like taffy. He changes through teal and pink swim thongs, and our speaker's Donna spars their Madonna. And somewhere in there, we laugh about it again, how we had on hikes or bikes or stoned in parks. Each sweat streamed down our chests like gore from a fresh gash. Not quite a guffaw. He doesn't toss his head back. It's a bitter kind of laugh at our situation, not helpless, not resigned. Luxury is the luxury of seeing the green outside in nature, said Andre Leon Talley. He said, I don't want to see skyscrapers. We know Earth's C-suite saboteurs could fit in one large room. We know Earth's C-suite saboteurs could fit in one large room. Thank you.
Hello.
Boop, boop. Okay, go.
Thank you so much, Kyle. That was beautiful. And thank you so much for having me. I think of Kyle as one of the great partiers in my life. And so I'm honored to be here to talk with him about what's a really worthy subject. So my first question to you is, as I see it, considering the subject of your book, as I see it, there were several traps that you needed to avoid. Political poetry that wasn't chiding, party poems that weren't indulgent, and speaking as a diasporan while avoiding the corniness of diaspora poetry. Can you speak to how you elided all of these traps?
Did I? Do you think I did? Okay,
I think you
period.
did. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Period. No, it's hard. I think for me, the guiding principle when I'm making a poem is just like, first of all, I ask myself, like, could this have been an email? Like, because if the answer is yes, then why am I writing a poem, right? So I'm thinking about like sound first and foremost, the way it's sitting on the page, the rhythm, all of that. The essential elements are what comes first and foremost. I knew when I set out to write this project that I wanted to write a different kind of Cuban American perspective that I hadn't read before. I felt a certain responsibility to shake shit up a little, but I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself in the ways that you're saying, and that all of that gets in the way of art making. I was in a workshop, a summer workshop, with really great poet Vanessa Villarreal, who was telling me, she kind of helped me free myself from the obligation to worry so much about delivering a polemic or, sort of screaming at the crowd, as it were. Like, she just reminded me, like, to focus on being a poet and, like, making good poetry. And, like, your politic and your being comes naturally when you write poetry. So if you worry about that part of it first, the rest will come through naturally. So, but thank you. I'm glad. We didn't want to be corny. That was, never.
Never corny. People say a lot of bullshit about, in general, but also also about first books. But among the things that is said is that every first book is kind of an announcement, and also that it's a record of a journey. And I am specifically curious. 2 questions. You've talked a little bit about the evolution, but where did this book begin for you? Like, where did it start? If you want to say more about how it's evolved, that's great. And then also, what is it announcing to the world?
Okay, where did it begin? Yeah, I was thinking about this recently. Like, why are parties my subject? And I think it starts with my family. We are party people. My maternal grandfather ran a social club in North Jersey. My godfather, my uncle, works as a promoter still. I've done some of that here, some hosting. And yeah, they all go out. They're all party people. So for me, it's like, it's been like, yeah, like a culture, like a family thing, and it's an important part of my life individually. But yeah, it's because of all that, it became like, I saw it as something like very consequential and very personal to me. By that same token, the Cuba stuff, that's my culture, my heritage. I've been to Cuba a couple of times. Those were really formative trips for me, politically, artistically, spiritually. And I was always going back and forth. Like, I had these poems that were very like more fun and like party based, and then I had the more like serious, dour, like, here's what it's like, the material conditions of the embargo right now. It's like, that's not fun. But I was like, how do I tie these things together? Like, they feel very separate in my mind, and so I sought to sort of integrate them, and I think that's how the book started to come together. Sort of drawing through lines between like big, like uppercase P politics and like the politics of shared social space. And then, sorry, what was the second part of the question?
What are you announcing?
What am I announcing? I don't know. I think I'm announcing that I'm here. Like, and like, no one else is writing this shit. No shit. That's really it, I feel like I'm announcing that I'm here, and I think I'm not so vain as to say I think I'm the best or anything like that. But I think that I've delivered a unique project. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. And on that note, you seem, as I am, and I know this also through knowing you, you are taken by certain models of feminine self-authoring. And so divas figure quite prominently in your work. There's Celia Cruz, Patti LaBelle, your grandmother, Amiri Baraka.
Whitney's in there.
Yeah. And so, yes. And so I wanted to ask you, because they are so often not seen as, and they're not often taken seriously intellectually, I wanted to ask, how do you make divadom a fruitful means of intellectual inquiry, and how did they figure in this work? Like, there still hasn't been a good biography of Whitney Houston.
I know. Maybe we have to do it.
It's maddening.
Yeah, one of us might have to. Yeah. She's so fab. No, I love that question. I mean, yeah, this book, what would my life be without the divas? So many of them are here. I'm looking out, I see the divas. Yeah, I mean, the diva, for me, like, I guess just speaking very personally to my own identity formation, like, I was very much like a girl's gay guy. Like, most of my friends were girls growing up. Like, I just, I was protected by and uplifted by girls and the women. Like, I come from a family of very strong women who I admire a lot. And so, yeah, it just felt very natural to me to take that seriously as a point of artistic inquiry. And yeah, like, you know, incorporating Celia, and there's a poem in the book that's about the time that Celia Cruz and Patti LaBelle performed at the Alma Awards in 1998. It's a really fab performance. If you've not seen it, it's on YouTube. With that poem, I watched it and I was like, this meeting of minds, they look related. They're dancing like titty to titty. Like, they're just like having a really good time. I'm like, this is poetry. So, yeah, just like all that kind of stuff. Like, the divas inspire me. Like, they inspire me in my everyday life, and it felt natural to me that it would be a part of me writing this book. And, you know, I think poetry is often considered one of the like high art forms, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm glad that I could elevate divadom and diva worship a little bit.
Well, as it appears we all know, Kyle is the party person. I wanted to, my question is trying to get a little deeper into the party in the poems. I think one of the things that I love so much about your poems is that throughout them, they're kind of constructing a complicated relationship between the act of partying as an activity, as a pleasure, as a praxis, and politics, the kind of political writ large, often like specifically anchored in a political moment, but also in the sort of social engagement that we all can't escape. And I was wondering, what does partying in these poems reveal about politics, either at the level of society or just for the individual who's moving through the rooms of the party?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think I answer that question in a few different ways throughout the book. But I think that one way that I really kind of tackle it is in that middle poem, Public Policy, which I kind of think of as like a miniature sort of coda of the book. Yeah, that was one of the driving things for me, is just thinking about like parties which are seemingly like baseline apolitical or like more depoliticized zones where it's like people don't want to hear certain things, or like there's certain energies that you don't bring into the space because it could disrupt the good time. But choices are being made all the time within party spaces that are political, whether you want to say that they are or not. Sometimes it starts with the door. There's one part of the poem, there's like I remember being at like a Halloween rave and like seeing somebody dressed as a prisoner in line, and the people organizing the rave are like very like abolitionist, or like baseline, like that's part of the politic. And then so it'd be like, oh yeah, like you probably don't think that that's like tasteful, but the person like went through anyway. So it's things like that where it's like, yeah, it's not super consequential potentially, but also you're creating a certain environment where like you don't know who, if people in the space are formerly incarcerated themselves, have family impacted by mass incarceration, and so you're suddenly like around somebody who's like kind of making light of the prison industrial complex to be sexy, you know. So it's just like all of the, I feel like there's lots of little choices all of the time that amount to an answer to like what is the power structure of the space, like what is it that we allow to hear, like what can fly and what doesn't fly. Yeah, if that answers the question. Yeah.
We were speaking a while ago about Namwali Serpil's book on Morrison.
Oh yeah.
And sort of rereading Morrison, and it was Toni Morrison who said, the form is the argument. So I wanted to ask you, considering the form of your book, what argument would you say you're making?
God, that's such a hard, y'all are grilling me. Okay, what argument do I think the poem? I know, these are good questions. Yeah,
I was thinking of the lyric essay sort of spliced in the middle.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, that is helpful. And yes, both these writers are brilliant. If you've not read them, please seek out their work. Structurally, yeah, the book is divided into 3 parts, which I kind of think of the first part as sort of laying like foundations for the rest of the book, the pregame, if you will. And then the second, and each part is also like divided by like there's like little stanchion symbols, like velvet rope moment. The second part is, I would say, like that's the party, like you're in it, you're in the middle of it, that's what's going on, it's bustling. And then the third part is kind of like after / maybe even the next day, like reflecting. It's more interior, I think, than the rest of the book. So yeah, that's like the loose organizing principle of the book. I think all of the poems are moving in and out of like, you know, big scale politics stuff, small scale stuff, there's family stuff, there's stuff that's more friend focused, stuff that's more specific to, again, yeah, family history, time that I've spent in Cuba, etc. But yeah, that's like the loose structure. It's like a night out, basically.
I want to ask you about Cuba a little more.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's a big part of where you're from, locus of identity. We all understand what that means as creatures of the diaspora. And of course, it's a place, as you have discussed, that has a deeply troubled contemporary reality. But I wanted to ask you about the Cuba in the poems. What is it like to write about that? What is the Cuba that comes through for you? And do you think that you're trying to say something, I guess, specific about that place, but also just what is the act of description when you're seeing it in pieces and from afar often?
Yeah, I mean, the Cuba poems, like, it's so, I tried to really honor the fact that it's very different to be Cuban American and grow up here versus being born and raised in Cuba. Those are two very different realities, and I wanted to honor that. And I felt like the book would be dishonest if I didn't somehow, if I was only, you know, speaking extremely positively about Cuba, as in a propagandistic way. There's a lot of issues. One of the poems is dedicated to this teenager, Sidan Batista Alvarez, who was murdered by a police officer in Santa Clara, Cuba, a black teenager, circa 2022. And so, you know, even though it's happening smaller scale than in the U.S., a lot of the same issues with the police, with policing, and with prisons. Like, black Cubans are disproportionately represented in prisons in the same way as the U.S. So I wanted to draw some parallels in that way, and I wanted to honor some of the hard parts of that reality, and running back to how I am an outsider to Cuba in many ways, as much as I'm an insider. There's one poem, A Few Miles from Prison, which is about my first time in Eastern Cuba in 2020, which was a really incredible trip for me. We were in Santiago, which is like the easternmost part of the island, and then Baracoa. And on the way to Santiago, we stopped in Guantanamo province. So of course, like, growing up here, the first thing you think of is Gitmo. And I was like, whoa, it was so surreal, just like being at this rest stop, like looking out at the mountains, and it was really, really like insanely beautiful and green, and you know, taking all that in, but then also just internalizing, like, whoa, there's like serious human rights violations happening, like, so close. And we know that here, living in New York. Rikers is right over there. So I wanted to, and that poem reflects also on, like, I was in a group of people who hold U.S. passports and who were of the culture sector, you know, a particular type of people coming in and experiencing Cuba, and that's, yeah, and like our mobility versus somebody who is imprisoned was something that was on my mind. So it was a push and pull. I wanted to celebrate some of the beauty of Cuba and of Cuban culture, but also some of the difficult parts.
Wonderful. I wanted to ask you also, you say in one of the poems, quoting Bjork, that poetry is, hold on, I'm gonna get the quote right.
She says, you shouldn't let poets lie to you.
Yes. Yes, and you continue, poets can lie. Omission is the most common lie. So can I ask, with that in mind, what was omitted from this book?
Ooh. Let me think. I love it. What was omitted? I mean, there's an accidental omission that like I'm still sort of tormented by. I have this poem, RuPaul is Fracking, that was supposed to be in the book. That's about the fact that RuPaul's husband owns a ranch that is being fracked on. And RuPaul's like statements about this are really funny. Like he was profiled by Ronan Farrow in The New Yorker and was super defensive. And I think he said something like, before you point, like, do you buy gas? Before you point the finger, smell it, bitch. I'm just like, I think that's different than fracking, but. So yeah, somewhere in the drafting process, I don't know what happened, that got lost from the book. I guess I'll have to put it in in the next one or something. Stop that train.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why, if I think of another, I love that
Thank you.
question.
Perfect question. I am unfortunately going to bring the mood down. Oh. So one of my favorite poems in the book is What I Should Have Said at Your Memorial, which is an elegy, or maybe a kind of broken elegy for your friend Jackson, to whom the book is also dedicated. And I am curious because this is always something on my mind. Does poetry help us speak to the dead? And I was wondering if you could talk about your relationship to elegy.
Yeah, I mean, that poem was redemptive for me. For those who don't know, Jackson Woodside is who the book is dedicated to. Very incredible friend of mine. We grew up together, also Black, queer. And yeah, we used to store him. He was super, super fun. Y'all would have loved him if you didn't know him. To know him was to love him. And so, yeah, at the memorial service, I was a fucking mess. Like, I tried to write something I could not write in the lead up. I said something. I was like fully on the mic, like vamping something at the memorial, which is understandable. And you know, I've talked to his mom and other people after, and like no one remembers. Everyone was like in a cloud of grief. It was horrible. But I wanted to sort of redeem myself and write like, okay, what would I have said if I had been of sound mind? And so that's what that poem it was for me. Does elegy allow us to speak to the dead? I think for me, yeah, it kind of gave me the chance to address him directly and sort of tie it into a few different things. Like I ran back several memories that we had together. I ran it back to Hancho Campout, which has been really beautiful for me in adulthood, and a place that he would have thrived in because he could dance down, like middle of the, like people would have been encircled, like y'all don't even know. And so yeah, I wanted to like tie in things about my life that he didn't get to experience and things that we shared together, and sort of in that way, I feel like breathe. I feel like I get to breathe life into him when I read that poem, and yeah, he's really like the engine that animates the whole book. Yeah, I couldn't have written this without him. He taught me how to be like confident in the kind of person that I am, and how to be an artist. So
Wonderful. I wanted to ask you more about the figuring of Cuba and how you did so carefully and without being stereotypical. I feel as if Cuba within the hashtag leftist imaginary is this place that's under a brutal embargo and then where Assata fled. Mm-hmm. And it's often difficult for me to understand how to know more about it, or like how to, you know what I mean? Like it's its own flattening in a way. Yes. And so I wanted to know how you avoided that, if that makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. That was like forefront for me. I'm like, I don't want to parrot the same shit that we've heard all the time. Like I really wanted to write a Cuba where real people live and that is a real place, is not like, you know, a political abstraction, which is, you know, on the left it can be that, and on the right it's like it's only every negative thing you could possibly. There's no like real investigation a lot of the time of like what's going on over there. I love that you brought Assata into it. The last poem in the book is about an imagined encounter with Assata Shakur not a flea market, a farmer's market. And so even within that poem, I'm kind of like clowning the perception of the reader a little bit, where maybe I'll just read a little bit from that part. Okay. She's a figure in at least two imaginaries. In one of them, swathed in teal and jade Ankara atop a wicker peacock chair near the pork, fist up the whole time. In the other, this one, a simple tee and denim daytime look, rounded gold earrings with little leaves on them, braids stretching behind her. And so with that one, I feel, and this is true of how we speak of a lot of revolutionaries, is that we almost put them on a pedestal, which is this is dehumanizing. There's two ways to dehumanize people. You can either put them below you or you can put them above you. When really we need to, I think what's beautiful about Assata Shakur and about so many of these people is that they were normal people. They are normal people who made the decision to do extraordinary things. And each of us has the capability of doing that. And if we want change to happen, we can't think of ourselves as so radically different than an Assata Shakur or any, you know, or a Kwame Ture or any number of these people. They were normal people who saw what was going on and decided that they needed to do something about it. So, yeah.
Well, since you're already on the reading train, can I ask you to read a different poem?
Sure.
Can you read the Ars Poetica on page 9?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But then I have a question.
Okay. Where is it? There it is. All right. Ars Poetica. Cuba changed life for Baraka. His young careerist self squelched, reforged by time abroad. Turning away, he called a poem. That, and I think too, a turning back afterward, and so forth. Camera in rotation, snapping dozens of shots as its slow arced crane naps rich sketch notes. May the speeding merge with the still. May the panorama build. May a poem cut the width between there and here.
Incredible, thank you. I guess I'm really fascinated by this poem. I think it's beautiful. I think you're doing with brevity so much.
Thank you.
But especially this like the idea of the poem is cutting the width between there and here. The poem is like compressing distance, compressing space and time. And I was wondering if you could just sort of explain, honestly to me, but perhaps to everyone, how does a poem do that? And how do you sort of work toward that in your poetry?
How does a poem do that? What a question. I mean, for me, I think that a goal of that poem and of my poems in general is that I like to put things close that seem very far. So in cutting the width between there and here, that could mean the US and Cuba. That could mean me and you. That could mean a lot of things. Topics that feel completely separate but are actually deeply interconnected because we famously live in a society, so everything's connected. So yeah, that's like part of, yeah, it's like I like to put things next to each other that feel like they don't necessarily belong next to each other. You know, Whitney Houston, Suzanne Césaire, Adrienne Piper, popping ass, you know, that kind of thing.
I wanted to ask you about, partially because of my age, I was thinking about party line, sort of the dual meaning of it, which is the line literally outside of the party, and is there a relation to like the 1990s party line, which you could collectively call into?
There is.
Okay, can you explain
Well,
it?
so it's a couple of things. It's like a quadruple or something entendre.
Yeah, and also like the political party line.
Yes,
that you're
and also like the older technology of the party line that or is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So that was did that phase out by the 90s? Actually, I'm
Yes.
not sure. Okay. Because I think of it as like even older. But yeah, so so yeah, anyway.
Wow.
Right. So
You're a
that's
baby.
actually all our time. Thank you for. No. So yeah, I love the idea of a shared a shared line of like this is you and all your neighbors because it's something that I never experienced, but no, like I never had a party line, girl.
Okay, well, there used to be this thing called a landline.
Well, I had a landline.
And if you called a 1-900 number.
Yes. Well,
you
that's
could-
different. I'm talking about the party as though, like, a row of neighbors would all share a line. And
Yes,
it's like,
there's that too.
Because
Yeah.
Susie next door is on the phone, I can listen into what Susie is saying.
Yes, there's that one
That's
too.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I know the one you're talking about.
Okay, yes,
I
yes,
did
yes,
not
yes.
call Jasmine old. But
I'm fine being old, actually. I think it's a wonderful thing
aging
for a
is a
woman to
beautiful
be
thing.
old.
Period. Yes, shout out to being old. But yeah, I think I was thinking more about the original party line because I think that the poems are kind of operating like they're sharing one line, which is the poet's voice and choices and. But there's different things happening at different times. Like if you flip to one page of the book, it might be really like something really focused on family. Another one really more in the world or like more friendly. Another one might be very historical. One might be a more narrative poem. Another one, it could be very like sonic and rhythm based. And so it feels like different conversations. It's like you're tuning into different phone calls.
Yeah.
But my hope was that all together they would work out into something that feels cohesive. Yeah.
I think this is my last question, but I think it actually really connects to that because I always think about. So it's like a thing people say that that prose is heard and poetry is overheard, and I've actually always liked the vision of poetry as like basically eavesdropping. But I was thinking of this when I was reading your book in relation to that Stendhal quote that starts the second section. I think everything can be acquired in solitude except character, and I was thinking about the kind of famous that overheard line of the poet portrays the poet as kind of standing alone, sort of talking to themselves, and the reader as kind of listening in. But I feel like your work really makes a claim for poetry as also a social act, and I'm curious what you have to say about the role of community, of people, of anti-solitude in the poems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's both. I think that poetry, we take it all the way back. It's an oral tradition. That's how I would tell the story of my village I would run it over to the next village, very very far, and be like, "Yo, here's the poem of our village." So to me, it always is social. At the same time, it's deeply it takes solo time to do, and writers need our time to like hide away and be reclusive. And that can be your whole writing life. There's a lot of poets who, Emily Dickinson's entire oeuvre didn't come out until after she was gone. But I love that there's like the debate about like, is poetry social? Is it solo? That tension is always, it's very interesting to me. The Cuban poet, the great Cuban poet Nancy Morejon says that a poem isn't a poem until it's out in the world, whether it's via publication or by sharing in some way. And in a way, I kind of agree. And I think that, like, yes, the poem is for you, but I think that it's an encounter. I think that the encounter is important. In the same way that I was thinking recently, like, the institutionalization of like the way that we teach philosophy is really funny because like philosophers came to the ideas that they had from thinking, yes, but from it being in the world, from figuring out how they feel about all of this via existing in the world. It's not like an ivory tower thing where you like go and sit. That's part of it, but you go into the world with your idea. Like you sit first and you're like, okay, what do I think? But then you bring that into the world. So I think that there's a necessary exchange, for me anyway, that like, that's part of the fun is that I think it should be social.
Thank you. Also, my last question. I just want to say, I was remembering that you have a poem in here titled Elders, and you're on a date with a 50-something-year-old, and you called me old.
I
So
didn't call you old.
You obviously like the old. You obviously like them. But okay,
See,
my
this
actual,
doesn't happen at other lunches. You're not getting
but my
Real
actual last
Housewives
question.
drama.
Exactly.
Fact checking.
Okay, my actual last question. I think of you as someone who has this wonderful talent for what I would call, which I think a part of the relationship I share with you is this shared language of what I would call gay nonsense, like this a sort of hyper pop culture saturated, sort of speaking to each other as if you could be real. It's like we've decided that we're Real Housewives of the People's Forum. I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
of Midtown.
And so that's what I
Please
think
make
of
that
as your voice. And there is sort of an absence of that in this book. And so I wanted to ask you, what is the relationship between that Kyle, that voice that I think of as yours, and that type of language, and the authorial voice or the poetic voice you take in the book?
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like, yeah, it does. And so I'm thinking, because I think that it is sort of present especially in the middle poem, but yeah, it could have been more present. So I see what you mean. I guess I was interested in like a few different types of registers, and so yeah, I would like to maybe. I'm of like multiple minds for the next project. I either want to be like way more silly or like way more serious, and maybe those are two different projects. This one was sort of a push and pull, but I think it'll always be kind of that both, because I think I'm both of those people, and there's two wolves inside of me, and they're constantly, one really wants to have fun, and one really is just bummed by what's going on. And so they're just, they're constantly tangoing. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like there's some of the, like there's one part that's, I quote like a Twitter meme of Whitney, and where she's like, it's about the clubs. The clubs are happening. The gay community keeps them happening. It's where they go to release. It's where they go to get their stuff off. So it's like that, and I was like, this has to be in the book. Like this is a seminal text. So that's as important as the parts of the book that are like in conversation with like Plato or Langston Hughes. Like, yeah, I wanted to do a little bit of all of that, but maybe more brain rot for the next thing. The people demand brain rot.
Thank you. Should we ask the audience if they have questions? Yeah. Do any of you guys have questions? Okay, Gabriel. May I? Yes. Should I say it into the mic? Yes, take the mic.
I'll give, oh, okay.
Thank you. Hi, congratulations. It's just so exciting that this extraordinary book is in the world. And thank you all for this stimulating conversation. Kyle, I want to ask you about, this has come up in a few different ways, but I guess it's a different way of posing the question. I want to ask about the conviviality in the book. And you talk about all like many different ways of being together, not just the party. But you do think about the kind of like different qualities of social relationships that are enabled by people being together in particular purpose-driven and disinhibited ways. And one of those, that really beautiful and I think very moving, funny poem about Party Girl, where you talk about the Natasha scene. And I would love to hear you talk a little bit about those different forms of conviviality in the book and how they come out through its different registers.
Thank you, Kay. That's a great question. Yeah, it does come out in different ways. I think I was interested in, again, yeah, like celebrating conviviality in its beauty and in its complications. I think that togetherness it's really easy. It's the same way that like community is like a buzzword right now. That's like, I hear it and I'm like, oh no. But community, it's struggle. It's not all fun all the time. Being in together with people is not easy all the time. But true conviviality, I think, requires us to. It requires difficult conversation. It requires like honesty, like real honesty. Like, hey, that hurt me. Like, I love you, but that hurt me. And so I think that. And also, I think that there are smaller forms. I wanted to celebrate smaller forms of that as well, like within the Party Girl poem. It's about how Mary A. Parker Posey's character and Natasha, played by former club kid Natasha Twist, they maybe only hang out at the clubs, but they love each other still. And so I think that it's very easy to say that certain connections that we have are less important than others. Surely, like, you have your inner circle and something, but I think it's too easy to say that somebody who you hang out with in limited spurts isn't still important to you. And I think that thinking that way causes us to discard one another too easily. And I think that I wanted to celebrate like the beauty of those relationships. And I think that if we regard all of those versions of conviviality, whether it's, only small talk or only the deepest conversation, like all of those connections are meaningful and we all need each other. Yeah, thank you, really good question.
Any other questions? You.
You've worked on this book for a long time now. It feels like a long time. It's been a minute. Sorry.
You've worked on the book for quite some time, and like you've seen it change and grow over the past like 2-3 years.
Yes.
But how do you feel like you've changed and grown as you worked on this book specifically? Like, what did it bring out for you? And were there hard parts or great parts or like new learnings that you learned about yourself?
A lot, yeah. Oh, this light. It was like a deeply transformative experience, and I'm still learning from the book. I'm still figuring out like what did I learn from this process. I think it will its effects will be it's affected me profoundly, and I'll continue to learn like what has this meant for me. I think that it has made me. Poems are kind of spells. I say like when you write something in a poem. You can write like a version of yours, or like promises. You can make promises and then act on them by reading them over and over, by incorporating them into the work. There's one poem in the book called "The Socialite," which is about my grandmother. And one thing that I reflect on in that poem is like how much like being an artist and like being a writer has at times like. It's inherently like sort of selfish. Like you have to take a lot of time for yourself. I've missed things. I've been away from family. I spent a lot of time like trying to figure things out and trying to figure out my career as a working artist. And so there's a lot of sacrifice in that. And the poem I end on. Let me just, if I can quickly, maybe just that part, if I can quickly find it. No, not the whole thing. That poem is like so sad and would really bum out my family. Oh, here it is. It's a beautiful poem, but it's sad. But the last part, let me always be a person of people, a socialite like her, before a product. Let me not become the artist who peddles sadness, strategic heartstring tugs, just to book bigger gigs. And so in that, I'm sort of, yeah, like poetry, and I don't know, I think a lot about like the business of being an artist and like how much of yourself you are asked to put out there, and like I'm trying to like have boundaries but also be vulnerable, but also like not get lost in the sauce, and also like not get lost in the artist sauce and like forget who the fuck I am and where I came from, you know. So it's that balance, and I think that working on this book reified for me like how important community, not to use the C word, but real community, like like real shit, like real, like meaningful bonds and family are to me. And so I think that it helped me recommit to those things.
Right here? Yes.
Hi. So first and foremost, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for this work. Secondly, I teach high school poetry, so something my students often struggle with is the ability to put something on a page that looks like a poem. And just kind of browsing through, one of the things I really love about this book is how many different ways a poem can look like something else. So my question for you is, how would you explain to a young person who's encountering poetry for the first time what does and does not, quote unquote, look like a poem on the page? How could you guide them through it?
Yeah, thank you for that. I've worked with high schoolers too. They're so much fun and they're so receptive to different types of poetry. So that is one of the things that I try to do is like show them different shapes of poems, like prose poems, poems that rhyme, poems that don't rhyme, poems in form, poems that are in free verse. Because I think that, yeah, I think so often the ways that we're taught about poetry in school is so narrow, and it's like, there's one meaning and that's it. And there's one way that it should look or sound or whatever. And so yeah, that felt important to me too. Like, I think broadly, like within my practice, I would hate to feel like I figured out all my own tricks. So I'm interested in laying out poems in different ways and having poems that sound different and poems that are written in the I and then some that are in the you and some that are not about people at all. Yeah, I think variety was a goal of the project, and I think that's the only way to teach young people about poetry is to just show them like how much fun it can be and like get creative, make up a form. Like I've seen crazy somebody like. Do y'all remember that game like MASH that you would like write out on like I've seen people like turn that into a poem. Like I don't know, like you can turn literally anything into a poem. Like any weird thing that you've drawn out before, that could be a poem. The S thing that people draw in their notebooks, that could be a poem. Somebody make that a poem.
Right here.
Kyle, you obviously have great personal style, and it feels like an extension of your visual aesthetic, which also feels like very strong and personal to you. And I'm curious about the very evocative cover art of the book, and sort of how you got there and like how it plays on some of those entendres you were talking about with the title, or if it does.
Yeah, so I worked with an in-house designer that Grey Wolf paired me with, and yeah, so early on in the process, I was asked to fill out like a design questionnaire. Like, I gave them, words, moods that I would use to describe what I think the book should look like. I gave them examples of covers that I thought were pretty. What else did I give them? Yeah, colors that I like, yada, yada, yada. And so from there, the artist made a couple of drafts, and this was, I think, maybe the third one, or the third or fourth one. There were a few that weren't resonating for me, some that were involving, like, figures, and, like, I think that we just, like, had initially, like, different ideas of, like, how this should look, like, what the people should look like. It's hard to, the people is difficult. So I think going the more abstract route for me, like, eventually worked out. And when he presented this, I don't know, I really kind of fell in love with it. It reminds me of some of like Sophie's earlier cover art for her singles and stuff. It's like, it looks soft, but it also looks hard. It looks sort of metallic.
Looks like the coils of a telephone.
Yeah, it's that. It's like Party Streamer. It could be Blood. Like, it was, yeah, I like it as sort of a Rorschach of all things that are attractive to me. So yeah, I'm glad we landed here. Joey.
One last question.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah.
Congrats, Kyle. So proud of you. You're a baddie. You ate that. Whatchamacallit? I had to give her 10s. I had to. I feel like the Kyle that myself and many people here know is like a loving, sweet, funny person. But something that I've always loved about your writing is you go to places where you may have a lot of love in the situation, but can be so critical, can like kind of put people to task, make people examine the rooms that they're in, but it never feels like you're being mean or degrading. Is that something that's difficult for you in your writing? Is that a challenge that you like don't shy away from and relish in? Like, how does she find the balance?
I mean, I have plenty of opinions about everything all the time. You know, I know what I like, I know what I don't like. So that part was easy. But I think the larger ask of the book was like, in the process of talking to my editors, Carmen Jimenez at Grey Wolf, we liked, you know, I enjoy the parts of the poems that are, you know, more critical, and at times the tone you could even say it's catty in moments, but I didn't want to just be like, you know, on a soapbox, like, here's everything that's wrong with all of you. Like, I was like, we have to up the stakes. Like, I have to criticize myself, too. So I like to think that I drag myself a little bit here and there and, like, implicate, like, I have plenty that I am working on as well, far from perfect. I have, certainly a vision for how we might make the world better and how we can cooperate toward that goal. And I think that the book allowed me to like look more closely at myself and be critical of myself, but also give myself more grace, which is making me give other people more grace too. I think I've been maybe too critical. So like easing up, trying to keep the eye, but also like ease up a little bit and like, I don't know, my spirit feels lighter, so.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Those are great questions. So we're going to close out with Kyle reading one more beautiful poem.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. And then my mom brought a bunch of champagne. So maybe a little toast will be in order.
A toast, and then you can all get your books signed, too.
Yes, I heard that they might have sold out already, question mark.
Oh!
Oh, so we love that. There are two up here, so maybe if you didn't get one, we'll figure that out. We'll organize a game. Okay. Statement of purpose. Any way you slice it, I was born for a good time. Some of my primary interests include pomp, circumstance, occasion, and carousing. Love a kickback and a kiki. Very much love a tea, weddings, graduations, Meg's Monday night birthday function I stayed at way too late for a Monday night. I'm Mariah Carey on QVC, repeatedly describing herself and everything she loves as festive. I'm Andre Leon Talley, specifying he wear a caftan for his cremation. My dearest Ellery said he can't remember a boring day in his life. I'm free will agnostic, but with each conscious choice toward that ethos. The need for sleep, the need to labor, two little devils strapped to my back who synergize to ruin quality time. Just rude, needy, and greedy. Depending on who you ask, I'm going to hell, and all my girls are too. I'm afterlife agnostic, but if some kind of something comes next, what else to call it besides the afters? The very last afters. And if my girls are there with me, I'm good. We'll know who to haunt and do it well. Dressed to the nines in maggot-drenched couture. Okay, they're popping many bottles. Yes, please go get champagne. I think we're gonna maybe set up a table so I can sign books. And thank you all again for being here. I really appreciate it. This is so fucking cool. Like. No, I'm not gonna cry. No, my friend gave me a beta blocker. Thank you, Richard.
Tentar de novo ser feliz, me entregar como pede o coração. Eu te amei com toda a força do amor. Fui muito além do meu querer. Te dediquei a minha vida. Eu busquei a felicidade pra nós dois, mas ficou tudo pra depois. Chegou ao fim, não tem saída. Te amei, eu te amei com toda a força do amor. Fui muito além do meu querer. Te dediquei a minha vida. Busquei a felicidade pra nós dois, mas ficou tudo pra depois. Chegou ao fim, não tem saída. Beleza, gente. Com você eu vivi o mais lindo sonho de amor. Hoje eu vivo a chorar. Meu universo desabou. E quem me vê assim, perdido sem saber de mim, sabe o quanto te amei. Do sonho não quis acordar, mas tenho que pisar no chão, ressuscitar minha emoção, tentar de novo ser feliz, me entregar como pede o coração.